There's no doubt in my mind that you are performing a very much needed service at a very high level, and I congratulate you for doing that. Is there any practical way that any funds that the town might grant to you would be restricted to those who reside in Hilton Head as opposed to other nearby communities?
That is 100% our plan. What we're seeing is an uptick in families that are needing the services. So from 2022 to 2023, Memory Matters experienced over 1,000 more people needing services. Every time, and I'm sure you're experiencing the growth in the budgets and the people moving down here. So the more people retire, the higher the chance that people will develop some form of dementia. So Memory Matters is here for the people on Hilton Head Island. It's where we originated. That's where we plan to spend the money.
There are some rumors that you need to relocate from your current position. If that's true, how is that process going?
Well, first of all, we are, part of our program is to serve the greater area of the Lowcountry. But our roots are here. 75% of our donor base is here. Our history is here, and we have pledged to all of those donors and to the town in multiple ways that our intention is to stay here. We will be also looking to relocate, not relocate, but locate another facility. We happen to have offices that we have already programmed in Bluffton, which eases the driving time for a number of our associates who don't need to be in our instruction, our classroom areas all of the time. Their jobs are different, but that just saves them about 2 hours a day of travel time. But we, meanwhile, have a total dedication to the island. That's not going to disappear. It's going to be enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Okay. James.
Appreciate your time, and it's unmistakable, your passion and your expertise and what you bring to our community. I support your organization and a number of other nonprofits in the community. Each nonprofit coming to us to request money would have the same passion and the same expertise. And I'm not in the mind of saying that we should open up this precedent to nonprofits, because I think that it places a burden on the town council to assess which passion and which expertise is the most valuable to the community. And I, for one, feel, because I support other nonprofits, that that's a very, very difficult ask of the town council. And then secondarily, it opens up a funding stream that we really don't have. We have tax money, we have hospitality tax money, we have other ways of supporting organizations, and we have made that decisions in the past. For instance, the Boys and Girls Club received an tax grant. I think there's a story that's parallel to this. I was involved in the relocation of the Children's Center back in 2007 and 8. Under the leadership of Tom Peoples, the then mayor, and Steve Riley, the town manager, they appraised the piece of ground that they needed for a traffic circle on Matthews Drive, where the Children's Center was located, at a very favorable appraised value, and made available to the Children's Center a piece of 3 acres of ground where it is now located. In effect, the town took a very significant leadership role in acknowledging the value of the Children's Center to the community. I, for one, think that you're in the same boat. I want to help you find a place on Hilton Head Island that makes a difference for your clientele. Our age on this island is in the mid-60s. We recognize your clientele is here on the island and growing off island. So I, for one, think that our priority ought to be serving you in that regard and not opening up the issue of $50,000. I think there's a strategic imbalance there, and I think we ought to be pushing hard to find that location on the island for you. Thank you.
Stanford.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, all four of you. You are obviously providing a very valuable service to the community here, in particular to those particular clients or patients, however you refer to them. I recognize the impacts of memory loss. All of us probably have known someone or lived with someone who has that, and so it is something that is real. I think you're providing a very valuable service to us. I hear Mr. Ames' concern. I'm less concerned about a precedent. I am interested, though, in do you have a use that you're intending to apply this $50,000 to?
We do. In terms of families that are coming to us, many of them are on scholarships currently. And one of the things that we see is an uptick in all of their financial burden with this disease. It's a fatal disease, and it takes, unfortunately, the toll over many, many years. That being said, Memory Matters is filling that gap, again, between the doctors and the hospital systems and the families having no services at all. So every time you've left your doctor's office and you say to yourself, I wish I had asked that one question. Or, geez, if I go home, I'm going to have that moment where I need this, and now I've got to call back. Well, here comes Memory Matters. We're going to step in, and for all those times your wife hasn't been able to get dressed the right way or bathe the right way, or for how many times do we send out first responders for somebody who's wandering on this island? We're stepping in sooner. We're providing free memory screenings for individuals. Joy talked a little bit about that, like your eye exams, so that people can recognize that early memory loss and begin to do something about it. So if we're seeing an uptick of over 1,000 people in 1 year, what are we going to see this year? How many more retirees are moving to this island? We know that this is happening. The bridge project, while it's going to go on, and we're sitting right kind of at the cusp of that, and I recognize and applaud any effort for land or anything we can do with Memory Matters, we still need to service the people who are on this island on a regular daily basis, whether they need a day program or they need education or they need help with that individual. And not being able to get back or call back that individual doctor or health system and reaching somebody who can put resources in your hand is incredibly important to the families on this island. That's why they recognized it 26 years ago and started this organization. The other part of this is that we're local. So you're not having to call a 1-800 number and sit on hold for 3 days for an answer. We're available now. There are only 12 of us. We've extended our reach into the community with volunteers. We have over 50 of them currently, helping so that every single day families aren't waiting for some sort of service. Hopefully that's answering your question.
So what you're saying is that the $50,000 will go just generally to the services being provided by Memory Matters.
It'll give the families the ability to have that for free. Let Stacy go ahead, she's tapping me.
To answer both of your questions, I think it will go to fee assistance to help families who can't afford any of our fee-based programs. It includes our early memory loss class, some of our education classes like Savvy, Brain Boosters, but our adult day program. And those families, specifically when everybody signs up, we're gathering that demographic information so we know which families are on Hilton Head and based on island versus based, in the surrounding community. So.
I think in the future, if this grant goes through, you should be prepared to give a report about how the money allocated by the town was spent in providing your services. So I think that is really important. I'm inclined to support your grant because of the services that you provide. But underlying that is your commitment, as you say, to remain on the island. And so we're relying on your word about that if this goes through. Thank you.
Okay. Good?
Good. Thank you.
Thank you
I'm
for
going to
your time.
reserve my questions until after we take public comment. Okay, so you guys don't go too far. All right. Have a seat, please. Make yourself comfortable, but not too comfortable. Okay, any public comment on this particular item? Yes, please.
Angie Hutchins, Shipyard. Mr. Ames, I commend you for tenderly and clearly expressing what I believe to be a very strong sentiment that once you go down this path of opening medical care in one shape, form, or fashion, where do you stop? I think it's a very hard issue. I was a nurse. I worked in home health as well as a nursing care facility that had a lot of Alzheimer's patient. I understand, lost both parents. I understand it's hard, and then the funds are not there. But I think it highlights this specific issue, and their wonderful presentation highlights our failing healthcare system as a whole. And when we keep putting Band-Aids and supporting issues, we're not attacking the roots. Hilton Head attracts also a number of people that want a healthier, active life. We have a senior center. I don't know if there's a way to go about having space at the senior center. I don't know enough about here in this specific. I think there's other ways to look at solving problems here that liberate people to find their own choices instead of becoming more and more of our government, our limited town government, being a service for people. Because where do you stop? And it's not that it's not caring, and that's why I really appreciate your comments, Mr. Ames, that we do care about these people. I have volunteered, and there's a number of people in private support of this, and that's a beautiful thing about our day and age of being able to support things so easily with the giving sites, Caring Bridge and whatnot. That's individuals, but being able to support the things that we're each passionate about. But we do attract a number of people that are looking for a healthier lifestyle. If we can encourage, in general, restaurants to offer healthier options, looking at the root causes. I mean, I know there's an increasing number of doctors referring to Alzheimer's specifically as diabetes type 3 because of the role of high fructose corn syrup and other horrible things that are in our foods, as well as, this goes back to some other things, the getting rid of Roundup on the island, making Hilton Head eco-tourist friendly, healthy, all those things. It's hard for the people that are in the throes of this, and I recognize that fully, but there's other ways of initiating so that we're not just snowballing this effect on down the road and increasing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to the dais. I've got just a few questions for you all. Yeah, please. Yes, I'm going to ask Jeff and Josh to help us out here in just a moment. Thank you all for the presentation, first of all. You mentioned that the split of the folks that you are caring for is sort of 50-50 between here and Hilton Head, and then about 1,000 member increase over the last, 3 years, as you may have said. How much of that increase split between Hilton Head and Bluffton? Do we have any idea?
Lower number of people coming from the Bluffton area, I'd say about 35% of that increase. And to just address it kind of in combination with the comments that were just made, we teach a brain health component to Memory Matters. We teach a healthy lifestyle, we teach about a Mediterranean diet, and we're trying to get on the forefront of this disease. They don't know what specifically causes Alzheimer's disease, but we're going into every community from Sea Pines to Palmetto Dunes, Shipyard, you name the community, we're there. And we're teaching about brain health and how to eat healthy and stay healthy. So it is one of the components of Memory Matters.
Okay. And one of your slides showed a listing of your partnerships, and Hilton Head Hospital was one that was listed. Can you talk a little bit about what that relationship looks like?
Sure, we're always working with primary care physicians, with hospital systems to make those referrals to Memory Matters. Again, it's where that doctor's office, that hospital system leaves off. I've gone in, I've spent time. I may or may not have been diagnosed with a form of dementia. Typically, your primary care isn't going to do that. They're going to refer you to a neurologist. I don't know how many of you on this island have ever seen a neurologist. It takes you about a year to get in. So while you're experiencing some sort of decline in your memory, you're worried and you're trying to get in to see a neurologist for some sort of diagnosis. That diagnosis isn't going to come the first time you're in that office. That diagnosis could then take up to another year. Now you're 2 years out, and I know you're reading about all these drugs in the news and you're getting excited. Maybe there's something they can do for me. Not necessarily. You have to qualify for all of that medication. What that medication is going to do is it's not going to solve for it. You're not going to be the person that maybe you once were. It may just help you stay in place with your memory. But the earlier you're diagnosed and the earlier that you are actually in this system, the more that we can do for you. I can't tell you how many people we wish we were in front of now that may be experiencing some decline. You saw some of those numbers. We've got folders for you that should be coming to Memory Matters so that we can begin to help them on this journey. The sooner they begin, the more we can do. Every single time you have a first responder that's coming to something and somebody with dementia may be in the home or in the community, you're going to see that repeat with that hospital. They may show up back in that emergency room, and they may go undiagnosed and get kicked back into the community. So we've been working with Hilton Head Hospital to try to stop some of that. Those costs go up. There's a lot that we can do there to stop those readmits and begin to put families in programs where we can help them.
Specifically with Hilton Head Hospital, 2 weeks ago, we sat down for about an hour with the CEO to try and brainstorm on ways that we can improve that partnership, foster other ways to piggyback on each other's services. Pledged at the end of that meeting to meet a month following that. So it's an ongoing partnership that we hope flourishes. Certainly, we had supportive commentary from the CEO.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to ask staff to give us a little help here. I'll start with you, Mr. Hammond. Does staff have any presentation or recommendation as far as this application request is concerned?
Guess what we want to do is just go over again there is criteria for affiliated agency, so I would like to bring that up. Again, just as to go over it again, affiliated agency is defined as an integral partner contracted by the town to deliver services that benefit the public on the town's behalf. And the funding review process is conducted and is guided by the following criteria to assess the public purpose served by each project. So it has a clear public goal or benefit, primary beneficiary, speculation level, and probability of public interest. So those are the four. Like I say, those are the four criteria. Again, just as a reference, this is the recommendation, or the applicant request totaled $2,375,000. At the last F&A meeting, the recommendation was $2,150,000. Again, these are general fund revenues. So as we've talked about before, if there is a recommendation on this, we're working on the FY25 budget, so if there is a recommendation on this, then we would need to make some other adjustments as far as funding sources in the FY25 budget.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff?
I assume there's no recommendation from staff.
All right. Don't call on Mr. Gruber. So they saw me looking at you, huh? Yeah, no chance. we've heard from the committee members a couple of concerns I was hoping that you could help us out with. One is if a grant was to be awarded, the assurance that that funding would apply to Hilton Head residents. Is there a way to deal with that?
Sure. Similar to what we've done for other affiliated agencies, we would likely recommend to do some kind of memorandum of understanding to go along with any kind of funding that would be provided. Within that document, we would specify the restriction on the use of funds in terms of how they could be applied, and then what documentation we would require to show and demonstrate that they've been applied within that manner. Just providing the funding itself doesn't necessarily get us there. Obviously, we can have a communication and understanding, but staff's recommendation would be that if the request does go forward and if it does receive support from council, that prior to the distribution of any funds, we work to get a memorandum of understanding in place to outline how those funds would be restricted.
Okay, and the second concern that I'm hearing up here is being that they are serving sort of a 50-50 split with Hilton Head and Bluffton, have already made arrangements and I guess commitments with office space in Bluffton. And we have seen a lot of our businesses and services sort of exit to Bluffton as well. And again, I appreciate the conversation that they've had with Hilton Head Hospital. But as far as participating with some potential space, how would we go about that?
That's difficult for me to answer because it's still somewhat speculative at this point without further information. I can tell you, from a policy standpoint, ultimately council can say that if they identify a public benefit that is generated from that action of identifying a space or some other kind of location, ultimately there's probably the ability to move forward with that. Obviously, if it's located on Hilton Head, that's no question, it's there. If it's within the region, I think you still get to the discussion of there's the ability to serve residents in either location. It just becomes a little bit more speculative in terms of that analysis.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes,
That's
sir.
it. I was sort of thinking that you may not have the exact answer. I was pointing with that question for more discussion amongst the committee members.
I think it may also be an opportune moment with having the town attorney here. I know Mr. Harriman brought up the discussion of the 4 elements. Those were included in the affiliated agency program based upon a South Carolina Supreme Court case that really provides guidance on how governmental bodies can go about identifying the public purpose element of a proposed expenditure. And so just for the public's benefit and for the committee's benefit, it may be an opportune time to ask that he provide some information about that, a little bit more than what's just listed in the staff memo.
Looks like he's on his way. Mr. Coltrane. Thank you, Josh.
Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Curtis Coltrane, and I'm glad Josh did this because this actually is part of something I've very recently been asked to do for council, and where I would like to go. If you could go back to Kim, you could go back to the slide Jeff had up that had the 4 things. There you go. So I'm not here to advocate for or against anything. But the 4 points that are shown on the slide that you have before you are drawn from South Carolina case law where expenditures of public funds have been challenged as being unconstitutional dedications of public funding to private enterprises. And there is a South Carolina constitutional term that prohibits that. But what the Supreme Court of this state has said is that the determination of whether there is a public purpose is one that initially sits with the legislative body making it. In this case, that will be the town council when it considers its budget that encompasses all of these things. In order to make the determination on whether or not there is a public purpose to the expenditure, the 4 points that are set out on the slide in front of you are the methodology that the legislative body goes through in order to make that. So, on point one, you have to determine whether or not the expenditure will result in a distinct goal or benefit to the public. And this is and you'll see this in some material coming from me, but this is defined by our Supreme Court as a fluid concept that changes with the time and needs of society. So, you just have to, that is something that you look at a particular expenditure and determine whether or not there is indeed a benefit to the public. Number two, you'd have to determine whether there is a public or private entity that is the primary beneficiary. This has typically come up in challenges to economic development statutes. And so I wasn't going to advocate, and I'm not, but in the sense of memory matters here, there's no, this is not an economic development thing. There's not going to be an entity that comes in and utilizes the funds to create a business, if you will. So your question here would be to analyze whether or not the benefits provided to the participants of the programs that Memory Matters provides actually inure to the benefit of the public. There's certainly basis upon which one could find that, and to the flip side as well. The second is whether or not the project is speculative. Again, this kind of comes from the economic development sort of case. I mean, here, I don't know that there's any basis to find that there's any speculation at all. I mean, everyone knows what the entity does. They know how it works. It's not, I don't know that that's a particularly relevant consideration for council in this one. And then the final one is the evaluation of the overall probability that the public interest is served by the expenditure. And again, where that leaves council is you have to look at the particular project that is under consideration and determine whether or not it ultimately serves a broader public interest. And there are many ways that you can define that. For example, in this case, the broader provision of mental health services to the public. That's one way one could look at it. But again, what council has to do as it moves through this is to examine the 4 points that are shown here. That is the methodology to make your determination of whether or not a particular expenditure, not this one or any one in particular, but a public expenditure, how it shakes out when analyzed in the context of these 4 points.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Coltrane? Members of the committee? We're good?
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will bring the discussion back to the dais.
I believe there is a clear public goal and benefit to this grant, primarily or substantially based upon the fact that the funds will be used to provide scholarships, free services for people that are affected by these conditions, and that the other provisions of our definition of affiliated agencies are met. And I do want, at the appropriate time, to include an MOU between the town dealing with how those funds will be allocated, spent, and reported. Thank you.
Alfred?
I don't have any question about whether public purpose exists here. Public health has always been a matter that is generally considered to be a public purpose. If I have any concerns about this, it's not in the arena of public purpose. It's not in the arena of, does this institution do a good job, or is the institution needed? My concern is, how do we differentiate the town from the Low Country Foundation? We're not directly a grant-giving charity. Uh, And that's the aspect that I'm concerned about. And if, I don't want us to be in a situation where we end up that in effect, the grant here is the Alex Brown Community Charitable Fund. So that's the items that matter, that concerns me.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Ames.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that there are three items that I want to touch on. Is this an integral partner of the town? There's a definition of affiliated agency, which we have utilized over a period of a number of years. There's precedent on who we think falls under the category or rubric of an integral partner. Rec Center is one, Shore Beach Services another, USCB, and so on. I think that we should be very careful that we are consistent in our definition of what an integral partner is. Secondly, I mentioned already the almost bottomless well of trying to differentiate the value of one nonprofit to another. Is Vim more important than Sandalwood, more important than Deep Well, more important than the Children's Center? I can imagine every single one of them coming up here and standing in front of me and making me feel as though they are absolutely deserving of a grant. We don't have inexhaustible funds to become the charitable giver of this town. We can support them in other ways, and that gets to the third point. I would be an enthusiastic supporter of helping the Memory Matters find properties to stay on this island, because I think Memory Matters is important to this island community. So I think that our strength and our support is in a leadership commitment to making Memory Matters whole on this island from the standpoint of a facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ames. Okay. If it's, before there's a motion here, I'm just going to throw something at the committee if there's pleasure. I think we still have a question about just sort of tighten up if we were to grant some type of memorandum of understanding. We also have in play here, Memory Matters is having conversations with Hilton Head Hospital. Hopefully those are qualified conversations, and then we all, at least at this committee level, agree that this is a service that we do not want to see leave Hilton Head. Would it be appropriate for us to ask staff to start to work on some type of memorandum of understanding in that we are looking to keep Memory Matters on Hilton Head, particularly with the 278 expansion sort of coming through as well. I think this is a very relevant conversation, a lot bigger than the grant, obviously, that they're asking us for. I think there's more work to be done here to make sure that we firm up a partnership if that's the direction we want to go. So I'm asking the committee is if we mind giving staff sort of some direction to continue this conversation as we're going.
I think that's an excellent idea, to refer it back to staff to begin to work on an MOU that shows how these funds will be allocated, where we're assured that the provisions definition of affiliated agency is met by this grant. So I would support that idea to refer it back for negotiation.
I think if we were going to go in that direction, then I think there would have a concomitant part that says that we are also establishing the support and partnership with Memory Matters to find a facility on the island for their benefit. I'm not going to be supporting the MOU but I don't have a problem passing it on. But I think as a part of that, we have to be stating our support of their finding a permanent location on the island.
Okay. Thoughts, Mr. Alfred? Agreed? Okay. We got our notes, Mr. Gruber?
Couple different things going on, and I just want to make sure that we
Sure,
boil down to
absolutely.
into articulable motion
Yes.
that documents what it is that we're going to be doing. So first is the funding application that is pending before this body, and a determination on whether or not the committee is going to recommend that funding request up to town council for inclusion in the budget, and if so, then the adoption of an MOU. Not alternatively, but simultaneously, there's also the discussion of assisting them with identifying a site on the island for relocation. So it almost sounds like two separate actions that I think may need clarification based upon the comments that have come from the committee.
That's valid.
I'm not sure I'm hearing that the committee is ready to take any action today. And I understand we have a budgetary timeline to fit within. What I'm hearing is a little bit more discussion about what that MOU looks like before we were in a position to say yes to a grant. Am I correct in that?
I think you're correct on that, Mr. Chairman. If we've got time pressure because of budget, I suppose we could move this forward to council without a recommendation, provided that an MOU that's satisfactory to council is adopted. I'm not sure of the timing on that, Josh.
So an MOU, probably we could have turned around in about 30 days from the time that we would put it together. And then obviously we have to share it, get comments and feedback from Memory Matters, give them an ability to review it, and also probably provide it to their legal counsel as well. So there is some time involved in that. Doesn't necessarily impact us. I mean, the FY25 funding cycle is going to be coming forward for first reading May 7th, and then we'll do second and final reading in June. And so the likelihood that we would have an MOU drafted, the terms of which everybody agrees to, that we bring back before this body, that this body can then review and make a recommendation to council on, that council then can adopt, probably will not line up with our budget cycle. And so, again, if the committee feels comfortable, you can make a recommendation that it goes along contingent upon the adoption of an MOU, or you can not include it in this funding cycle and entertain a mid-cycle amendment, which you're allowed to do at any point in time if council's supportive of it, to ultimately provide funding at that point. So there's a couple different ways that you can go, but I think it's up to this body which way it prefers.
Go ahead, Mr. Ames.
Yeah, I'm going to withdraw my request for the support of the facility, because I do believe you're correct, it's a separate issue. And if council were to move forward with an MOU, I would be able to vote on that. And so I think the single motion is fine. I do think that it boils down to leadership on the part of town council to support Memory Matters. It was clear that when Mayor Peoples supported the Children's Center, that he wanted that done. And I think council has to be as emphatic in this regard as well.
Okay, so the question that we need to answer is, do we want to send forth a motion of approval or not on the funding, with the caveat of the MOU?
Yes, sir.
Either being before or after the budget cycle, I think is what we really, the crux of it, correct?
And if there is any specific comments about the terms within the MOU, and so, Mr. Stanford, I've received yours about ensuring that the funding is limited to residents of Hilton Head Island. But if there's anything similar to that or other conditions that you want to see involved in that, please make that part of the motion as well so that we know to include that. But yes, that is, I think, what you're looking at is the funding request itself and then anything attached to that funding request.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Gruber. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve this grant, provided that an MOU is negotiated with Memory Matters that assures that the funds will be applied to services to residents of Hilton Head Island and related services. Thank you.
Okay? Is there a second? Okay, seeing none, motion fails. Ms. Ames, do you want to speak at all to the second point of assuring the location removal so that staff has that on the record, or you want to take that up at a different time?
Josh, I think it's really an issue that the mayor has to lead. But I'm happy as one individual on this committee to say this is something that ought to be brought up with emphasis. So where do you think we ought to go?
Sure. And if the committee wants to take a formal action to recommend something to council, certainly you have the ability to do that, and we would pass that along. I would say informally, there's certainly ability to talk with the town manager. I know that staff is always in the process of looking at land acquisitions on the island, ancillary matters related to that, and so it may not take a formal action of council to do that. It may just take coordination with the town manager.
If I may, Mr. Chair, what's the pleasure of other members of this body?
Any thoughts on a formal or informal, Mr. Alfred? Not yet? Okay. Mr. Stanford?
Not sure I understand.
Okay.
So I think if I could add some more detail to it, what the committee is essentially asking for is staff assistance in working with Memory Matters to identify a site that would allow them to relocate from their existing facility to another location on Hilton Head Island. If that is the case, then obviously there's a lot of details that go into the who, what, when, where, how much, all of that. And so without knowing those details, it's hard to have a concrete discussion, which is why I'm suggesting something more of an informal discussion of, we think it would be a good idea for staff to look at doing this, and that to me is more of a discussion with the town manager than it is a formal vote and a recommendation to town council for formal action.
Yeah, I personally, I like the framework that you stated, Mr. Brewer, for where we should go next.
Okay with that, Mr. Stanford?
Yes, my motion failed, so I guess I am. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So I would just encourage all of us to have this conversation with the town manager as to what we discussed here today. I think it's very important, and I will actually do the same and follow that up with a conversation with the mayor as well. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys for your time. All right, we will be moving on to our next item, which is the review of the 2023 Hilton Head Island DMO Industry Metrics Report. Assistant Town Manager Angie Stone, welcome. Before you get going, Angie, I just asked that council members, although we've seen some of the reports here, if you have questions along the way, please let's ask them as we're going. I'd sort of like this to be more of a conversation than a presentation, okay? So with that being said, Angie, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Angie Stone, for the record, Assistant Town Manager, Community Engagement. I have the pleasure of bringing up Ariana Pernice from the Chamber of Commerce Vacation Convention Bureau to discuss the DMO's annual metrics, as well as she will go into her presentation of the budget and marketing plan for 24-25. On a separate note, I wanted to let you know, Mr. Chair, that we are back up and running on our broadcast with audio, and that happened about 10:30, so we've been up since then. All right.
Thank you.
Ari?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and council members. My name is Ariana Pernice, and I'm with the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation and to present where we've been and where we're going. I also have our controller, Ray Deal, here with us, and other members of our team in case there's other questions along the way. So we'll start with our contract and our metrics, if that's okay with you. My right pile together. So again, we're going to be reviewing what is in the contract. So those are 13 metrics. Oh. Perfect. Thank you very much. So again, within our contract, you're going to see that we have the 13 metrics here in front of you. I'm not going to read them. I know that you have those in front of you as well, but we'll go through each one of them together, so it'll be a great conversation, I think, an opportunity to chat through each detail. So resident and visitor satisfaction survey. So that is one of the opportunities that we have been working on together in partnership, the town of Hilton Head Island, the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, and our community, as well as our visitors who come to the island. And the resident component is a newer component that we've added in, and we've seen great insights from that. So as of this past year, August 28th through September 17th, we had our wave 3 of the survey in our community market. And from that, we had 2,800 total respondents. And again, that was both within our gated communities and outside of our gated communities. And this is not the deep dive that you have in front of you in the booklet, but just the top 5 insights, just so we can start the conversation. Again, we're using our base wave number 1 as our piece that we're, measuring off of. And the number 1 insight is that our importance of tourism as a community is up in terms of wave 1. So what that means, in short, is that those in our community are starting to understand the great value that tourism brings as our number 1 economy. It gives them the wonderful amenities that they're seeing around them, that they get to experience and live with every single day. The Chamber remains a top reference source for residents when they're suggesting things to do or where to go. They say, please visit the Chamber of Commerce to their visitors. Traffic continues to be a top concern of our community, and we are addressing that in partnership. But pride in our residents is one of their biggest pieces. They have such pride as being a community member, but they are starting to see a slight concern or raise their hand as a slight concern regarding safety. NPS is Net Promoter Score, and as residents from Wave 1, they consider themselves passionate advocates, and I think that's important because as we're familiar with Net Promoter Score, that 9 and 10, if you're looking at it from a 1 through 10, the 9 and 10 are what are measured, and the very low 1, 2s, and 3s. That middle section doesn't really rate on Net Promoter Score, so we know from a passion point that our residents are feeling very confident. So those are 9s and 10s coming through on that.
Ariana, before you go forward on that, 2,830 respondents is a very good response, I would say.
Yes.
And so that gives merit and value to the report. You've explained before the reason for August through September, that period. Can you refresh me on why that September period was chosen?
I'd be happy to, Councilman. So we chose this time frame to be purposely in the thick of it, right? We know that those are pain point time frames for our community in the past, or they have raised their hand to say, gosh, we're in the thick of it. What is this, and we want to hear what they're saying right in the moment and not wait to potentially miss some of that sentiment that they might have. So it was purposeful in the time frame. But let's look alongside what the visitor is, saying when they're here visiting. So from a trip characteristic, these things vary year to year, and we track them through our partnership and our visitor profile study efforts with the College of Charleston Office of Tourism Analysis. And this is a rolling survey. Again, we have visitors 12 months, 365 days a year. So what happens is, just to give you some background on how this survey is conducted, is you come on to our website and you request a visitor profile study, or excuse me, a vacation planner. And in that, filling that information out, you also give some insight as to when you have intent to travel. So if you're looking in January, but you're going to travel in April, we follow up with you a couple weeks after that April timeframe, and we ask you a series of questions, so on and so forth, and that keeps going. So we have a good steady cadence of insights that are coming in. So this year, from 2023's insights, we have our average group size around 4.7 people. Personal car remains the main mode of transport to the island, as well as along, from touch point to touch point on the island when they're here. From a length of stay perspective, home and villa is averaging at eight nights, just over 8 nights, where our hotel length also grew, where that's garnering 6.5 nights. But how are they planning? VRBO continues to be the #1 touch point, also using our local vacation rental management companies, and then using the online booking services of the local resort. And why are they choosing to visit? They're choosing to visit because of our beautiful beaches and relaxation, family, and this is a great family piece that we like to talk about. We see a wonderful transition, or we should say generational passing of the wallet. So if your family has been coming here for 30, 40 years, your grandparents made that decision a while ago. They've then passed the virtual wallet on to their children. They're making the same decision to come back, so on and so forth. So it's wonderful to see that people are building memories here in this destination. Nature-based activities, biking, and culinary. Yes, sir.
Sorry to go back to
No, it's
travel
okay.
planning. You said VRBO seems to be the most prevalent. By what percentage, or do you have any idea?
I do, Councilman. I can go back into the visitor profile study and find that
Yeah,
and report
I'd be
back.
interested in it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll make that note, no problem. So the appealing experiences and important supporting attributes, our traveler here to this destination loves to get their hands into what we're experiencing as community members every day. They like to be out on the water. They like to enjoy fresh local culinary experiences. The things that we hold so dearly to us are the same attributes and experiences that our visitors are loving about the destination. And our total respondent group was about 1,710.
All right, are you planning to do the same survey exercise in 2024 during the same period? Is that
For this one, yes, this one has been our foundational survey. We look at the questions to make sure that they're maintaining and no adjustments need to be made, but this is the one that we've had in place even prior to working with College of Charleston when we were with Clemson University and USCB. So this one has been in place. The newest survey is the resident one. So this one will both maintain going forward.
Okay. I'm not necessarily looking for an answer here today. When we look at the one example here, personal car being the main mode of transportation to our place of paradise here, we have promoted and spent a great deal of public investment into our airport.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, and again, I'm not looking for the answer today, just curious to see if there has been any transition as far as the mindset of those that are looking to travel to Hilton Head, all right? I think that's important information for us, not just as we're talking DMO, but obviously in other decisions that we're making here on Hilton Head. So that one sort of stuck out at me.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it brings up a good conversation for us to take offline and dive into a little bit further, even if they were coming in by an aircraft, what is their mode of transportation, and talking about, going back to the cornerstone plan of how do we ensure and enhance or increase the shared car service opportunity or shuttle service. So yeah, great conversations to have as we move forward. But yeah, some of that insight is in the visitor profile study, and happy to dive into that for you offline. So looking at occupancy, average daily rate, and revenue per available room. For this past calendar year, occupancy was at 57%, average daily rate was at $290, which led us to have a revenue per available room of $167. And so when we look at that, again, these are just numbers in front of you. What does that mean? I'm flipping my slides as we go. We are down with an occupancy and ADR by 3% and RevPAR by 6%. But let's put that in perspective of what does that look like year over year? Because you can't look at something, and again, these are that conversation opportunity where you're looking at something singularly. But if we look back over the course of a couple years, 2021, we had wonderful demand in the market, which resulted in an increased average daily rate. There weren't a lot of other places open in 2021 where people felt safe to travel as well. So that is what led to our increased 2021. Numbers. In 2022, we saw the U.S. was starting to open back up. Overseas was still closed, but we began to see those slight decreases in these three metrics. But then 2023, the world was open, both U.S. and international. We had some inflation that we were dealing with, as well as uncertainty in the economy. But let's look forward at this across multiple years. I put the little yellow arrow at top for 2023. This report and the next following two slides will look at the two-source report. The two-source report combines hotel as well as home and villa reporting and puts it together so you can see a comprehensive number. So when we look at occupancy for 2023, on the blue column with the yellow arrow above it, that is at 57%. And that's taking 12 months. And when you look at the average daily rate, it is down in 2023 to 290 versus where we were in 23 at 359. Things to keep in mind, again, where was the economy? What was the demand in our market versus others? What was open, what was not? Are you able to yield $800 on a Tuesday night? Those are the type of questions that we're thinking through. But when you put those two together, you get that end number of revenue per available room. So taking all the available occupancy and then equating that to the number of average daily rate, and you get the 167. The $167 per night, if you spread that out across 12 months, 365 days, it is down from the year prior. But if you look at it in terms of the bigger picture of, and we'll get to this in a later slide, the economic impact. We've worked very hard as a group and together in partnership to understand who do we want on the island? Who are we attracting to the destination? Do we want to talk through more occupancy and a lower rate, or a higher rate and less occupancy? I think our goal is really to understand the segments of our visitors, understanding how we can best put our product forward to yield the correct consumer that we're going after. And so that's really the conversation that we'll get to.
Before you go, I'm looking at 2023, $205 RevPAR for villas. Is that per person, or is that for a unit?
For a total unit per night.
Okay, so we don't know how many people were staying in those units?
Not per se on this particular number, but when we look at our total units available, we skew more towards the villa units that occupy the 2 to 4 individuals versus the 10-bedroom homes. So we have insights that we have on different reporting that shows us kind of that breakout of different units available for us on the island.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to, in the hotel rooms at $139, assume 2 people, so it's basically $70 a person, whereas in 205, if there are 4 people and it's $50. I'm just trying to see the impact, both economically and also from a numbers standpoint on
Absolutely.
those things. Thank you.
Ariana, I have a comment on this as well. I see that each of these numbers in 2023 is down from the prior year and several of the prior years. You're showing that we're continuing to have growth, which is healthy, but when we look at the hotel comparison of the communities who've gone through the same economy that we have, a different market to some degree. Savannah's dramatically different. Charleston is different as well, but it's hard to understand why, with the marketing efforts that have been made here, we're having a decline in the RevPAR and the occupancy and so forth in comparison with our competition set, as it's referred to here.
That's a great question, and it really comes down to it comes down to a few different pieces. To the left and to the right, our destinations to the left and the right have different product to offer. They also offer a variations on rate. So there is, a $59 night or, an $800 night. And so they're obviously able to yield a few more heads and beds based on the opportunity for price point being so. We have different offerings, I should say. And so when we're looking after who we're going after in terms of visitorship, we're going after a very specific consumer. And so when we're casting that net and we're pulling them through the funnel, we're not going after necessarily the $59 a night visitor. And so our numbers might look slightly different, but overall, I think we've had the conversation where we're going after those that will spend the higher price point or an average price point that you're seeing here, but spend more in the overall experience when they're here, leading to a higher economic impact, which we'll see in the number later on. So potentially slightly lower occupancy, perhaps slightly lower yield in terms of what we're getting every single night, but we're still going after that top tier consumer to bring to our destination.
We want to see the higher rates, the people that can afford the higher rates, because that is the consumer that we're after.
Absolutely.
But have your marketing efforts changed in such a way that would result in these effects we see on RevPAR, occupancy, and so forth, in comparison with our competition set? Has there been a change in the marketing that's resulted in this? Or is it more just market conditions and the condition of facilities here on the island?
I think the latter, sir. So we have changed our marketing in partnership with our marketing council and the town of Hilton Head Island. We have not changed, but steered our direction a little bit towards the 5 values that we'll talk about in just a few moments. However, we can't side that the economy has changed, that other things have opened up, and that we are in competition with the world again, right? We're in the mindset of fighting for our fair share of visitor. Remember that pool that we are fighting for is very small across the U.S. and also across the world. And so when we're competing for them, we're competing against other like destinations when people have so many more choices today. And so yes, we are right-siding a bit, but we are watching it very closely. We absolutely would love to get the 800 on a Tuesday night at a hotel. That would be amazing. However, I think what we're going to see is a more realistic rate of, the 3 to 5 to 6, depending, and it could vary from day to day or season to season. But our goal really is to ensure top quality, visitors to the destination and experiencing great product when they're here and great experiences while they're here.
Thank you.
Sparked another thought. You mentioned that your reporting is skewed to the 2 to 4 bedroom villas. Okay, so does that mean that we are excluding?
No,
Okay.
let me clarify, I
Sure.
apologize. When we look at the report of all product that we have available on the island for home and villas, we can see a breakdown of what product we have, and our majority that is on the market at any given time is the home and villa product versus these 10-bedroom, large oceanfront homes. It is a smaller percentage of our total inventory. We are capturing all of it, but that being said, we have a majority of the smaller units available on an everyday basis. So we're capturing all of it, but just in total, how does it all break out?
Just a suggestion as we're reporting out in the future. Just sort of listening to some of the comments here. Obviously, we, again, are using some of this data to make or influence other decisions, right? And there has been, a grave concern about the larger facilities that hold more people. Obviously, if their rate of exchange is in lines with the market, that could skew the number because you'll have more people in the unit. So just giving us sort of a better understanding of what percentage represents,
Okay,
I think will help the discussion.
I've made that note. I'm going to go into visitor spending studies. So when we look at the visitor spending studies, and this is the piece that I was talking about, we do have lower occupancy, overall lower RevPAR, but those that are visiting here are spending more money. And I think that that's what we can see in this slide, bless you, is that we're 13.5% up from the year prior in terms of the economic impact. And that is, let's break this down just a bit more, but the economic impact of tourism on Hilton Head that we bring into the greater Beaufort County area, correct? So that 3.61 is the visitor exchange. They're breaking that down to the touch points of direct and indirect. So direct would be we're at either a grocery store or we're at the hotel or home and villa management company and we're exchanging directly with them. But it also think through the touch points of the impact it has on the taxes. It also has impact on the person delivering the linens or the catering company. So these are all impacts when those things are touched or impacted, where that number is accounted for in that 3.61.
Has that changed over the last 5-7 years? Is it consistently calculated in the same way?
It is, sir, yes.
I have a couple of thoughts on that. 3.6 billion divided by the number of people who came to the island last year is about $1,200 a person. Several years ago, 5-7 years ago, that number was $589 so per person. So that sounds like we're getting more contribution per individual who comes to the island and visits. But I'm interested in knowing of those 2.98 million people who come here, how many are day trippers? Because I'm quite confident that they're not spending $1,200 a day when they come here. And so I'm just trying to figure out where we are in terms of real value for our tourists who stay in here 8 days or so on. Can you give us a number of date visitors?
I can, and that's my next presentation, but I'm happy to switch over. Angie, would you mind if I switched over, or should I wait? Either way.
Just wait if you have it.
We do break it down, and I think that's a great conversation, Councilman Ames, where we need to start looking at, we can talk about 3.61 or 2 million visitors to the destination, but I think in a conversation that could be somewhat shocking right off the bat, it's like, oh my gosh, either in positive or negative, where did those numbers come from? And so what we've done in the second presentation is we've tried to break it down, at least from the visitor component, tried to break it down for you by segment, because I think that's an important conversation. You were just saying that. I can do a little bit more for the home and villa piece as well as the hotel. But when we have that healthy conversation about, well, okay, but the 2.8, who makes that up? How much is the day tripper? How much is the overnight guest? Who's staying with a friend and family. So we'll get to that one. And that's also provided by the visitor profile study, and then we break it down in the economic impact report to what their value is or contribution is in that slide. So we see here for every dollar that we put in for marketing, we get a return of $24.11. And you can see that's slightly down from the year prior. But when we look at how those local tax revenues are generated by visitors, and we're going to probably work on the colors here, but we wanted to break that down for you, as what you're seeing here is this is down slightly, up slightly, excuse me, wrong slide. It's flat to last year. We had 44.5 million in fiscal year '22 and 44.6 million in fiscal year '23. Over the last 5 years, comprehensively, that's up 74% in terms of these collections. So we see that 2.98 visitor number that we were talking about, and that is down 3.4% to the year prior. When you look at who is making the decision to travel, it has moved back to being the female decision maker in the household. Last year, we saw an anomaly from what we've reported on for the last several years, where it did skew to be the male was the decision maker. So we're back with the female at 54.1%. And the 2.98, again, is down the 3.4% to last year. But let's talk about the journey on how we get that 2.98 here to the destination. We have, for several years, talked about HiltonHeadIsland.org. That 3.2 million website visits in 2023 is what we're calling our virtual front door. In other destinations, you might see a physical brick and mortar, and though we do have our offices here just up the road, and that are manned as a welcome center, as another touch point to be to ensure all of our efforts across the country and the world as we forge a little further in the international effort, that HiltonHeadIsland.org is imperative to ensuring conversion to our business partners in the community. So we converted over 1.2 million. And when we look at what does that mean? So when someone comes and visits HiltonHeadIsland.org and they click on a business of ours within our community, and we call that a handshake, and they click out to their business, that's what we're calling a conversion. We're not a point of sale, so at that point, we have done our job, which was to bring those qualified visitors in, they're interested and they're clicking out. One of the only pieces that we produce that's a physical piece is the vacation planner, and that's the coffee table book here that we produce. And years ago, it used to be a digest piece, and this has been increased in size as well as content. We're really trying to bring forward those deep storytelling efforts in this book, and there's around 80,000 that we produce. And how do we distribute those? So it is also made digital as well, so you can find that on our website, HiltonHeadIsland.org, but it's also available in our offices. It's sent to all state welcome centers, which there are 9 across the state. AAA offices request these and are fulfilled to them. If you email or call in, we can fulfill those to you as well. We take them to all of our trade shows and events, and they serve to all of our media and public relations initiatives. From industry awards, the 7th year in a row, we've been awarded the Reader's Choice Award from Condé Nast Traveler. And one of the things, Councilman Stanford, that you asked was, has our marketing shifted? And we have always talked about the wonderful attributes that we have within the destination that are beyond beaches and beyond the other, golf and others that we have here. But we have made it in partnership with the town that bringing our 5 values even further forward, which are wellness, arts and culture, history, culinary, recreation. And what we're seeing from a third-party source, the readership of Condé Nast Traveler, is it's working. 71% have chosen us for our delicious food and wine. They love our local cuisine, and they love our cultural experiences. And I thought that just as we start to track this, because we've just put these initiatives forward, that they're really working. And that's, again, not us saying it, that's a reader of Condé Nast Traveler saying it. So when they're voting for us, yes, it'll be because we have beautiful, pristine beaches, but it's also for these other wonderful attributes that we have within the destination. This one is the number of jobs created by tourism. Over 36,000, almost 37,000 jobs were generated from Hilton Head Island tourism. So again, we cannot take for granted the impact our number one economy has within our not only onto Hilton Head, but for the county. So when you're thinking about that, again, that indirect and direct touch point, it's really talking about, again, employing those that are not just here on the front lines within our businesses, our hotels, our restaurants, but it's also those that support those businesses, whether it be food service, linens, staffing behind the front line. So it's all jobs for Beaufort County that we make up, which is that number, 36. And then we're also asked to track how many numbers of events that we are doing as a Chamber of Commerce. It's over 83 in-person and virtual events, and then 43 ribbon cuttings, which led to our 126 total events for the 2023 year. Public relations had a great year, and I'll talk about this a little further in my next presentation. We had over 6,376,960,959 impressions. Whew, that is a big number, and I know Ray behind me is very proud of that big number reading, but I think it is impressive what Charlie Clark and her team does with Weber Shandwick. They are amazing at building relationships and keeping Hilton Head Island top of mind. So these are earned opportunities. These aren't paid for. The fact that you're getting 6 billion eyeballs, that's the, definition for impressions. People are seeing your information, seeing your detail across Travel and Leisure, Southern Living, Vogue, The Points Guy. That 6 billion in terms of impressions, it could be a combination of print, digital, social. It's someone else telling your story and advocating for you, telling all the reasons why Hilton Head Island is amazing. So that was over 2,000 stories, and an ad equivalency of over $21 million. So when you're looking at something that costs $21 million, that's, if you were to pay for it, the fact that Charlie and her team were able to equate that to over 6 billion impressions, that's quite amazing. And so let's take it a little further. That first article there, it says Travel and Leisure, that was the February edition that came out, and I have it flagged for you guys to see, but we got a note from the editor-in-chief, Jackie Gifford. And I want to say this was months after. She wrote this to us in March of this year. And she said, the editor, Bridget Bartlett Royale, visited Historic Mitchellville, and they sent her story to NATJA, North American Travel Journalists Association. And the article itself won in the category of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in travel. This isn't, again, just Travel and Leisure readers saying that this was a wonderful article. It was, brought across all different channels, including hers. It was recognized by the National, Journalists Association for North America, and it's won an amazing award. It won the gold in that category. And again, it just goes on to show how hard her team, Charlie and her team, are working to bring the values that we've set forth in partnership further into these publications. So I'll and then going into fulfillment, that was it. And so that was it for this slideshow. Any more questions on this, or I can dive into the other deck if you'd like.
Good to keep moving? Good?
I know you have the 1 o'clock, I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll get there.
Okay. I do. Are you putting it on that one? I think this one was the PDF. Can I do the PowerPoint? Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so that is where we've been with our 13 metrics for the DMO and our contract. We're diving into what is now the fiscal year 24-25 strategic marketing plan. A few of the first slides will be somewhat of things that you've seen based on our previous presentation, so I'll try to move quickly through those. So what is our approach? It always starts with a visit, and we're thinking through how the visitor is going to digest this destination, because if we recall, many of us have been visitors once ourselves, and so we want to make sure, as we're thinking community first, we're also ensuring that the visitor is here to support that #1 economy. So how do we do that in partnership? We always are thinking through what is the town's 20-year comprehensive plan have set forth, as well as the priorities that come out of their planning sessions every year. In addition, the Chamber of Commerce built a 10-year destination management plan. Management because we're not developing this destination, correct? It is developed. We're managing it to make sure it maintains and ensures the quality of visitor going forward. We also have our community cornerstone plan that we do in partnership with the town of Hilton Head and our community and business owners. The annual strategic marketing plan that we're presenting today, and then obviously our annual surveys to both our community members and our visitors. Councilman Stanford, we have moved big strides in destination values. So again, going back to where we've seen a bit of a shift in our efforts, we are bringing forward further than we have in the past our efforts regarding ecotourism, history, arts and culture, recreation, and wellness. So these are at the forefront of all we do in our out marketing efforts. And who are we targeting when we send those out? We are targeting an affluent traveler. So 150,000 and 250,000, that's really where we should be, and apologies for that. But they're 56% undergraduate degree, and they take 2 to 4 trips a year and stay on average 7 nights. And then when we look at that female, she's skewing a bit more female, and we're talking about to all the different segments that would travel. So weekenders, families, snowbirds, sports enthusiasts, culinary, wellness, arts and history, and international. And from a household income distribution standpoint, we're taking this from the visitor profile study. We are seeing that the household income that we are reaching is that 15.9%, which comes in just after a couple of the other segments, but we are focusing on and seeing great return on that 200 to 249. We've talked at length about the always-on approach. We have to be, as the world has opened up, as consumer mindset has changed, we need to always be on touching the visitor, our desired visitor, with our brand and our experiences. And we want to bring them through that virtual funnel, right? We want to continually qualify them to ensure that they are on brand with us and they like the things that we're offering, and we're interested in them coming to the destination to experience the things that we have to offer. So those touch points vary, and the toolkit is full, and those pieces are always on. When we talk about that virtual funnel, again, we want to build broad awareness about the destination. So think about a funnel, and then we pull them through, right? What is their intent to travel? What's their intent to travel to our attributes? And what's their intent to travel specifically to Hilton Head Island? Once we bring them through the middle of the funnel, we're working hard on conversion. What does that all mean? We're changing the message along the way. Do you like the beautiful pictures on Hilton Head Island? We're going to show them a swirl of those at the very top of the funnel. When you get to the middle of the funnel, there's going to be a little bit more messaging about how you can do those things, the best things to do while you're here, and then we're converting them. They're coming to the website, hiltonheadisland.org. They're shaking a hand of a business partner, and they're making that commitment to come and travel. And again, the bottom piece is showing you all the tools in our toolkit that we do that. We looked at a few of these pieces, I'll go through quickly, but that 3.2 million visits to the website, referring partners over 1.2 million. Okay. People want to see turtles.
They always go to
And
the
so
glow.
we have that audience, Councilman Brown, we have talked often about how we're growing that audience.
People that leave their lights on. They always go to the glow. People that leave their lights on.
Okay, and let's make sure I have that. And then looking back again at public relations, we talked about that and the importance of having those others within the market of travel and tourism talk about us as a destination. Fulfillment, we've talked about that. And we've talked about this RevPAR occupancy piece, the 3.61 billion, which is up 13.5. But here are the segments. And this is that deeper storytelling piece that I would love to break into, whether that be more today or at another time. But we do have insights based on our visitor profile study and the economic impact report with what these segments of traveler are doing. And so the only note that I will make is when you look at Second homeowner and non-paying guest for their direct spend, that is a combined number in the economic impact report, and so that's why it's the same, and it's up 4%. But what you're going to see and how to read this is within each segment, the segment visitorship is down year over year, but the spend is up. Again, less people within each segment, which we knew we were down in occupancy, but within each segment, they're spending more, right? So home and villa, their direct spend was $985 million. Hotels, 557, timeshare, 412 million, second home and non-paying guest, 333 million, and the day trippers, 43 million. So all are contributing, obviously at different levels, but that again was that 12-month read.
Oh, all right, I got a question now.
Yes.
Not that I'm looking for an answer today. I'm just putting this out there as far as the way we look at these and report back. Obviously, based on our new approach of marketing, each of these are attracting folks that have desire around those 5 aspects that we're promoting. But I'm sort of curious to know how that then relates to the spend, because there may be some of those 5 that I guess would appeal more to a non-paying guest or a day tripper, right? So, and you know, what I'm sort of thinking about, you mentioned Mitchellville earlier, you know, folks may just want to visit Mitchellville, right? Just as some want to just come and visit the beach, right? So I guess where I'm going is, I'm not as caught up in the total amount of the figure, but how they all work together based on our marketing plan is sort of the direction I'm going as far as reporting in the future. That makes sense?
Great, so the journey of the visitor by segment. Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect.
Will you be able to find that?
I believe we're able to find a way to track what they're looking at, what they're doing, and also how they're attributing themselves within one of the segments. So I think we can make some good assumptions based on what they're doing when they respond back in their survey. So if we're looking forward, we know where we've been. We're looking back at 2023. When we're looking forward, we're taking the same approach. The toolkit doesn't change, right? The toolkit that we've created, that wheel with all the pieces that we're calling our tools, those remain are tried and true, and we know that they work very hard for us. But we want to look at always, what is the world talking about when it comes to travel? And the great thing here is it aligns with so many of our values that we're talking about here for this destination. So globally, wellness travel, sustainable travel, active travel, passion travel, set jetting travel, slow travel, and culinary travel. And people love a good seasonal getaway, longer itineraries, and things need to be personalized. So when I take that just quickly through this, active travel, that's people who love to go and do, you know, big bike rides or exploring the outdoors. Passion travel, we use this as an example when we were presenting to ATAX. People were actually making trips based on the eclipse. So that even though it might have been 3 or 4 days, they were taking the time out of their travel bank and traveling for that passion moment. Set jetting is not a misspelling, but it is an actual piece of travel segment of those that are traveling because they saw something on a movie set or on a TV that said, oh my gosh, this is on Hilton Head or another like destination, and they're traveling for that. Slow travel, I think post-COVID, we've seen an uptick in this, and people just don't want to be bound by a start and a stop. They want to be here for as long as they feel it's right to be here. So we'll take that. We love it as long as they're being proper stewards of the destination. Our goals, again, consistent where we've been, again, with the prior year, connecting the marketing promise with the on-island experience, create an understanding of and respect for our delicate ecosystem, drive deeper discovery and exploration of our destination, building brand awareness, and enhance leisure and group business through qualified visitation. When we look at this wheel again, it's just the same tools in our toolkit again, but how we're bringing those forward with the messaging and the imagery and the storytelling that we place inside them. Content calendar is just a example of a roadmap that we can build out together. These are things that we do in terms of campaigns or social media placements, supporting our local arts and culture efforts. So this just gives you a rough kind of example. These are not all commitments by any means. But here again, here are some of our toolkits, pieces coming to life. So that website is going to be that number one piece that we're out there promoting and capturing with that big cast of a net. We're using our organic and paid social media. Organic here is an important piece to tell those deeper stories. Digital advertising is where we're seeing our paid social media as well as our paid digital ads going out. And then our media partnerships, as we saw with Condé Nast Traveler. We had a wonderful story come to light, and this was a series of different stories. I just wanted to show you one.
Hilton Head and my Gullah culture has just really made me. It's made me who I am today.
You know, for all of the Gullah culture on Hilton Head Island, everybody came from here.
That's powerful.
1861. We were free 4 years before anybody else.
It's from Bubba, my grandfather, who was a craftsman and built boats or bateaus, but the entrepreneurial spirit, too, has been passed down through generations from our family.
Make sure you learn how to do something with your hand and to utilize your mind to do something for yourself. That Dr. Martin Luther King used to always say, you have to know where you're coming from in order to know where you're going.
Exactly.
And I believe that is some seasoned information.
So now, you know, kids who live here today, they'll never, well, they shouldn't be able to say that they don't know what Mitchellville is.
And to bring the kids out and get them involved.
Then they learn the story and they learn the background and they learn about the Gullah culture and they learn how important it is. And we are one step closer to making sure that the culture doesn't die.
Make sure it doesn't die. It don't die. You know that it continues.
That is just a little sneak peek of. Or maybe it's down here. Got it. Thank you so much. I apologize. Of what we're doing, not just within our brand assets and our toolkit, but with partners such as Condé Nast Traveler and beyond. In addition, public relations, again, Charlie, her team, and Weber Shandwick will continue to pound the pavement to ensure that the brand of Hilton Head Island is being heard and all the pieces that we have to offer. Meetings and groups will continue to be a segment for us to grow and expand appropriately for the offerings that we have. The hotels have all recently put in wonderful investments into their properties, and it is, as well, we have wonderful attributes to offer groups when they do come here. International marketing will continue to be at the forefront of our efforts as we look to those that do love Hilton Head Island and already have the propensity to travel. Those three areas are Canada, the UK, and Germany. There are others within not just our state, but broader that are fishing all over the world. But we know that these three are working hard for us, and we want to continue to build on that brand affinity and grow those visitations, especially within the off-season, because we know that's where they really help us. They stay for longer periods of time. And the vacation planner, again, will be that deeper storytelling that complements the 5 values that we've brought forward within the website and all other efforts. Remiss if we didn't talk about the Community Cornerstone Plan. Councilman Ames and others have worked so hard with our organization to ensure that the bigger picture and bigger thought process of how we approach tourism came forward with these 5 values. So we are grateful for those opportunities, and we continue to really push forward with everything that we do really ties back to the larger Community Cornerstone Plan, and again, being led with those 5 values. Our marketing budget, you'll see our increases slightly across the board, but really putting an onus on social media, that digital marketing, international, and just refreshing our assets when it comes to photography and videography as well.
Okay. Any questions?
I have comments.
You have comments?
Yes.
Please, sir.
First, I'd like to say, Ms. Bernice, that was an excellent presentation. Very detailed, very informative, and very helpful. Second, I would like to congratulate you and your organization for taking to heart all the discussions we had last year about things that the town would like to see done a little bit differently, and your willingness to work with the town to accomplish that. And I think it is evident in what's happening this year, and I, again, am very pleased about that. I think our objective, and you have touched on this, is to have fewer visitors spending more money, which shows up in a look back, and a subtitle of that is fewer visitors in the summer and more in the other parts of the year. You indicated, it seems to me that in terms of metrics, that would show up in a lower occupancy and a higher RevPAR and ADR, and that didn't happen this year. I assume you anticipate that would be the result in future years, is a lower occupancy and a higher ADR and RevPAR. The only things that concern me are in the surveys. You are comparing waves, and waves means years, and I think it is hard to get anything substantive out of a year-over-year comparison. Maybe over 3 years, maybe over 5 years, and so forth. And I guess in due course you'll get there. The other thing is, you have a question on how residents perceive tourism in general. And to me, that's not quite the right question. We all, I believe, understand that this island economy is very much based on tourism, and therefore it is an inherent, ingrained part. But what concerned us last year, and I think that concern continues, is what is the appropriate level of tourism. Your organization does such a great job that over time we could keep increasing the number exponentially with all the good work that you do, but I don't think that's what the community wants. And I think they do understand the value of tourism, but they get very concerned about volume and traffic, particularly when we had a couple of days ago, when we had the largest number of visitors in 6 years, largest number this year, the largest number of people going into Sea Pines on that day. People will remember that and say, yes, let's not overdo it. Let's get a fewer number of tourists spending more money. The question shouldn't be, do we like tourism, but what level do we like of tourism? Thank you.
Okay. Stanford?
Thank you, Ariana. This was a very informative report, as always. You heard my concerns about the RevPAR and occupancy decline. Those can be explained by fewer people spending more money. That number needs to be wiggled out of here a little bit better for us, I think, so that we can understand what that is. These are industry numbers that you deal with all the time, and we don't. And so you can help to interpret that for us. That'll be very useful. I have looked at the vacation planner. You gave us one for the current year and the previous year. Beautiful products, very impressive. For the most part, they are attracting the kind of people to the activities we want to attract. Something that is, I think, missing in that is some of the public park opportunities that the town has provided. The wonderful Celebration Park and what can go on there and the facilities that are available there. And so I would like to see some of that and continued emphasis on cultural tourism. We have a great story to tell here. We have a lot of history here, and we need to be promoting that better. Maybe there are not enough efforts from people who are involved, but I think if we can stimulate more of that, that'll be very healthy in terms of our tourism population that comes in here. One of your slides was pointing out the number of visitors by category. How do you come up with 255,000 day trippers? How do you determine that? I don't understand how you could come up with a number.
Right, so that is done by our College of Charleston partnership, and that's done through our surveys. So we can go in and get a little bit more information on how that process is done, but that's the kind of high-level detail is that's how we're saying.
Yeah, but I understand, but my point is, someone that lives in Ridgeland decides they want to go to the beach on Hilton Head for a day. They drive over here. They may spend a little money, but we don't have a way to tick off that they've been here. So that looks like a made number, a guess number. I'm not criticizing it, but we are saying that day trippers need to make more of an investment in their trips here, and we need to find ways to do that. Good. Thank you.
We'll get some more information for you on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Didn't get it? Commissioner.
He was over here a little while ago.
Yeah,
Yes, please, sir.
Ariana, I think this is the 9th presentation that you've given to council since I've been on council. I have never felt that you were anything but very professional in your presentation and the work that you give us. So congratulations in that regard. I really appreciate it. I also will note that over those 9 years, council and chamber have been moving closer and closer into an alignment on the values that are now articulated in the plan, and I appreciate that. I think that the connection to the funnel analogy is important for our community to understand, because as that funnel gets narrower, we have greater and greater influence in the experiences that people will have. I do believe that it is the attributes of our community that are important to our residents, and as you said, are also important to our visitors, are the things that we ought to be marketing, and you do a great job in doing that. So it's in no way for me, because I don't have the professional credentials, to criticize your methodology or your performance. I think that they stand on their own. What I do feel is the inherent conflict between the expectations of most businesses on the island, the need to continue to show profits in an ever-changing world, and what residents feel on our roads and in our restaurants. And so I do think that inherent conflict between economic expectations and perhaps quality of life, or where we as residents visualize the balance. So the bottom line for me is that the council, the town, the staff, and the chamber have to continue working on how those numbers impact residents' perception of quality of life. I'll just make an observation that the resident who came here 10 years ago has a very different level of expectation than the one who arrived today. And the problem is, if we don't manage that, it continues to change in a way that we lose what we used to have and was so important to the community. So with every new visitor, there comes an expectation of what's going to be important and achieved. And I think that the chamber has a very important role to emphasize those things that created the value system of this island and to protect it and preserve it into the future. So that's a big order, but it really does boil down to the alliance or the partnership between the Chamber, DMO marketing, and businesses and the town. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Okay. I share the comments of my colleagues here. I wanted to also thank you all for continuing to evolve. Very smart person quoted another very smart person about those that have the ability to sustain over time, but it's not always the strongest or the swiftest, but those that are able to adapt and change very quickly. So the efforts that you all have put into adaptation of the desires of the community and the council, that's been very nicely received, and you can see it in the reporting that you're giving us. One of your slides in the beginning of this presentation sort of had the circles, and one was about managing this asset, right? And you're right, we are mature. I think we have an advantage over other destinations because of that. And just managing is the key piece. And the only way that we can really manage is if we have the right information to manage, right? So just encourage you to continue to sort of sharpen that tool as far as the metrics are concerned. What's in the contract, at least in my humble opinion, is sort of bland to a degree. You can piece that out and get a little bit more creative with it over time, and I'll just encourage that we continue to do that. And the biggest one that you have, sort of stated is staying relevant. We have to continue to stay relevant so that we have a satisfaction factor for those that live here, those that are visiting here, the business community, because 20 years from now, we still want to be the #1 place to come visit, right? So I think that's important for us all to keep in mind. So thank you for your time and your presentation today. All right, Mr. Harriman, we do need to take some action here, correct?
I can make a motion if you would like.
Give Mr. Harriman just one moment. He wanted to just give us a little bit here. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to give you background, the budget that was presented today did include $4 million in revenue from the state aid tax funds to the town that would then be provided to the DMO. And just to give you a little background, we have been working, as you know, on the FY25 budget. We are showing that we're projecting aid tax revenues to be down slightly in compared to where we are this year into 2023. So we're projecting 12.8 million in aid tax revenues, and 30% of that we're coming up with approximately 3,836,000. Again, the amount that gets sent to the DMO is set by state law, so either way, it'll be whatever 30% of the state aid tax. But I just wanted to provide that as background, as the number that we were calculating so far.
Thank you, Mr. Harriman. Okay, Ms. Davis.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution recommending the 2024-2025 Destination Marketing Organization Marketing Plan and Budget.
Second.
Okay. We will take public comment on this particular item. Yes, please.
Hi, Katie Henderson from Hilton Head Plantation. I think you guys know I sit in here quite a bit. And I heard this presentation last week and again this week. And I just wanted to say that I think that the most organic strategy we could possibly have is to promote the RBC more, to give them some sort of way to show the island more, do commercials during the RBC, spend less money on these old school ways, and promote the international and national market there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Good morning.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
You got
I'm
another
sorry.
meeting coming up
Afternoon.
really soon. Melinda Tunner. I wanted to compliment you on the great discussion that you had regarding the number of visitors. That was one of the things that as I read the package and I'm connecting the dots to other materials that I had a concern on, and whether we had a targeted number of visitors that we're looking for. And one of the reasons this came up for me is in that trends and assessment report that's out there, it said that the trend could be 3.5 million tourists in 2025. And that was included in that trends and assessment, and that was alarming to me in regards to the increase. So I think that your conversation today was really good about partnering with this organization to really give direction into how many tourists we are looking to target. And if the answer is fewer, and to spend more in really making that clear, because as you said, we really want to balance the quality of life for our residents here while also respecting the fact that this is a tourist town and they bring in a lot of economic benefit to the island. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will bring it back to the dais. We have a motion and a second. We ready for the question? Any more discussion?
Ready to move forward.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is adjournment. I think we may have enough time to go get some lunch.
Second, third, and fourth.